Hi, in today's film I'm going to be talking about 3 famous adages that you may have learnt in school, or perhaps you've learnt since you left school, and all 3 of them are often used in relation to success in business. Now, the first one is one I'm pretty sure you will have learnt while you were at primary school. It's the old story of Robert the Bruce, the Scottish king, who was defeated by the English, lost part of his kingdom, and he had to go into hiding in a cave. And while in that cave, he saw a spider that was trying to climb up a wall in order to make its web. And it kept falling to the ground. And it kept trying and trying and trying, kept falling and falling and falling. Until eventually that spider didn't fall, and it was able to build its spider's web. And Robert the Bruce, observing this, took from it the adage, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. And as a result of that, he defeated the English and won back the parts of his kingdom that he'd lost. This is something that's often repeated in business, this idea that if you don't succeed at first, you have to try and try again. But that comes into conflict with the second adage. The second adage is often attributed to Albert Einstein. In fact, there's no real evidence that Einstein ever said this, but it doesn't stop people saying that it was Einstein who actually said it. And that is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting to have different results. Now, the third adage is the most important, and it's the one that I want you to take away from this film. But I'm not going to tell you that until later on. Because first I want to tell you about some of my own personal experiences. I've been running a business now for over 20 years. And in that time, I've seen many other businesses fail. People that I knew who set up businesses, people who are based in the same business incubator as me, people I've met through my educational work. I've seen lots and lots of businesses fail. And almost always the reason they failed is because they followed the Robert the Bruce adage. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. Because with respect, I think that adage is complete bullshit. I think it's completely untrue. I think if you try and try again, you're insane, as Einstein or whoever said it actually said. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. So I believe that if you do keep failing, you should give up. Don't try and try again. That's madness. Give up and try something different. Now, this has actually applied to me within my own business. When I first set up my business, I set up the company as a PR and press agency. And that's why I called the company the News Hound, because I thought it was a good name for a press and PR agency. And it's something I had a lot of experience in. Throughout my working career, before I set up my business, I'd done lots and lots of press and PR work. I'd worked with national newspapers, well-known national newspapers, broadsheets and tabloids, with national BBC television, national ITV news, with many international publications as well, and many national and local radio stations. And I'd had a lot of success as a PR person. So I thought I'll set up a company called the News Hound because it's going to be a press and PR agency. And at first I was getting no business at all. When I first set up the company back in 2006, I was doing a lot of sales work, a lot of marketing of my business, and not picking up any clients. And then out of the blue, I got a phone call from somebody I used to know through my old job, who said, "I've got some work for you, and it's quite a lot of work, and it's quite lucrative as well. But there's just one slight problem." And I said, what is the problem? I mean, it sounds great. I mean, I'd love to do the work for you. I've got the time, I've got the resources. And they said, yeah, but the problem, the bit you don't understand, is it's not press and PR work. And I said, well, what is it then? What is it you want me to do? And they said, we want you to do training work. We want you to do marketing training, communications training, business training. And I said, I'm not a trainer. I've never done training work. My company's called the News Hound. It's a PR agency. And they said, okay, no problem. We'll find somebody else. And then I stopped and I thought about it. And I thought, actually, I could put together some training courses. I could train people and teach people how to do marketing and PR and communications and business and all that kind of stuff. I've got the knowledge. It's just I'd never set up my company to do this. And so I rang them back and I said, hang on, I've changed my mind. I will do this work for you. And I did. And I amazed myself. For a start, I was actually really good at it. And secondly, I was really successful at it. I made quite a lot of money. And a few months later, I got another call from somebody else who I used to know from my previous job. And they said, we've got some work for you. And I said, okay, is it press and PR work? No. Is it training work by any chance? No. What is it then? Well, it's marketing and graphic design, producing publications, designing, writing, copywriting, editing, design, printing. I said, whoa, hang on a minute. My company's called the News Hound. I do press and PR work. And they said, oh, okay, then we'll find somebody else to do it. This might sound a bit like Groundhog Day, and it was just like Groundhog Day, because I sat down for a few hours and I thought, well, I've got a really good friend who's a graphic designer, and I know quite a lot about printing, and I know a bit about desktop publishing myself, and I'm a very good writer. I'm very good at copywriting. Hang on a minute, I could do this. So I rang them back and I said, all right then, I'll have a go. And so I took on a really big contract. It's for a big local authority, doing publications, writing, designing, print management, distribution of print, all the sort of stuff that I hadn't set up my company to do. And this might sound weird, but my company was doing really well, but I still hadn't done any press or PR work. So I'd set up this company called the News Hound because it's a press and PR agency, and I'd actually done no press or PR work. I'd been doing training, I'd been doing marketing, graphic design, publications, and of course word got out. And I didn't even have to do any sales. People were approaching me. People saying, hi Darren, I've heard all about your company. You've been recommended. You're doing a really good job. I ended up spending the next 15 years making a lot of money and being very successful, running a graphic design, marketing, training, communications agency. And to this day, I'm still running the company 20 years later. I've done virtually no press and PR work, even though my company was set up as a press and PR company, and even though it was given a name to suggest that it's a press and PR company. The point I'm getting at here is, if at first you don't succeed, you should just give in altogether and do something different, because the companies that do succeed, the businesses that survive and thrive and do well and succeed in the long term, aren't necessarily the companies where the owner has tried again. They haven't followed Robert the Bruce. They've actually given up and said, all right then, that didn't work, I'll do something different. And that leads me to the final adage, and the most important one. I first read about this adage in a book by Richard Branson. And there's several different people who've had this adage attributed to them. But I think the most likely one is a famous opera singer called Ella Williams. And that adage is, bite off more than you can chew, and then chew it. And that is the adage that I think you should take away from this film. Don't try again, because that is the definition of madness, as Einstein or whoever it was said. What you should do is listen to what the opera singer Ella Williams said. Bite off more than you can chew, and chew it. And no matter what your business was set up to do, if you want that business to be a success, don't do what you want to do. Don't do what you set up the company to do. Do what your customers want you to do. That is the way to business success. Don't try and try again. Give up and do something different.